What's happening, everybody? I just got done doing a live training for Real Estate IQ. And this live training was pretty much breaking down how I would go from 0 to 30 plus grand a month. And I shared pretty much all the concepts, everything that I learned throughout the time. And at the end of it, I answered a few questions, but time ran out and there was more questions I didn't get to. So this video, I'm answering all the questions that were asked of me. And I figured, why not just put it in a video so you guys can see and maybe it helps answer some of your own questions too. So let's get at it. So the first question was, what are some red flags when you're building a buyer's list that you will have from a buyer? And really simply, big red flags for me is when they're overgeneralizing what it is that they buy. When they say, well, as long as the numbers make sense or anything that the numbers make sense. Well, no shit. Like, I hope you buy things that make sense. Good job. But like, we want specifics. A real buyer will tell you exactly what they're looking for. You understand? Like these wholesalers, stuff like that, they tend to throw things out there like, well, 70% minus repairs. That's not a real buyer. Real buyers don't use those formulas. They have their own numbers. They run their numbers when it comes down to what they buy, where they buy, and everything. Level of rehab, right? A cosmetic renovation for me is not the same as it is for other buyers that I have. For me, a cosmetic renovation is doing a kitchen, bathrooms, everything that's interior that's not structural, because I've done six-figure renovations. But for other people, cosmetic rehab is just something that perhaps is, carpet and paint. That's cosmetic to them, right? So we want to know exactly, what does that mean? Are you willing to tear down some walls? Are you willing to do electrical? If they can't get specific with me, then they're not serious buyers. And one of the biggest things that I look for when I pull my buyers list or when I'm vetting buyers is they need to be doing between 7 and 12 deals a year. Why that range? I've been doing this for over 12 years now, and what I realize is the buyers that pay the most stick in that range. A buyer that's doing less than that, they might still be able to pay more, but the problem is they can't handle more than one deal at a time. So if you don't catch them in that sweet spot, they may not be buying, right? So you don't want to hedge your marketing on that one buyer. The next thing is, 12 deals or more a year. Those are usually buyers that have a good infrastructure, got good connections. They're able to source their own deals, maybe. So these are buyers that not like myself. I'm not a buyer for you guys. I shouldn't be a buyer for you guys because I don't pay premium. You understand? We can do 20 deals on our own. I don't need your deals. So if you bring me a deal, I'm going to still want to make the same profit I make on my own. Does that make sense? Because I don't want to deplete any of my capital or anything for a marginal deal. So you want buyers that buy between 7 and 12 deals a year. That's really what we look for. The next question was, what if a buyer wants to cut me out of the deal and go directly to the seller? This is why we vet our buyers. One of the things I do a lot in my mastermind is train our students in how to vet buyers, how to make sure you're pulling the right buyers. When you find a buyer that buys 7 to 12 deals and they are not sourcing their own deals, the chances of them cutting you out are so small. Because if they cut you out of the deal, they try to go around you. First of all, they got to have knowledge in doing that. Not many buyers even want to do that. Real buyers, they just like buying properties. They don't want to deal with the marketing, with the sellers, with the cut. They don't want to deal with any of that. They want you to bring them a deal buttoned up, nice and nice. They run their numbers and they close on it. That's all they want, right? So any level of complication above that, they're not going to be your buyers that you're going to want to wholesale to. This happens a lot when you blast your deals, right? This is why I'm always been against virtual wholesaling, because that's typically what you end up doing. You can't form good buyers lists, so you have to blast deals. Wholesalers will go around you and try to contract a deal or try to steal it from you. So these are the ones that you don't want to be wholesaling to, right? Because they're not real buyers. If you find real buyers and you get real buyers on your list, this will never be a problem. You understand? So you want to make sure that you're going after real buyers and you're vetting them before you send them any type of deal. I was asked, what's my number one marketing strategy? Well, right now in San Antonio, my number one marketing strategy is pre-foreclosures. We pull pre-foreclosures directly from the county, and we pull them every single day. So we're the first to get to them. We pull them, skip trace them, and call them. We don't mail to them. We don't text them. We call them straight to the lead. You understand? So that straight to lead concept gets us a lot of great deals. And because we're really good at what we do with negotiating and with, really finding out what the seller needs, we get very, very big discounts, which is why it is that we do such high margin deals. I was asked, as somebody starts wholesaling, do you recommend residential or commercial real estate? I'll be honest with you, it all makes money, right? It's up to you. If you're more inclined to do commercial, let's say, then don't do residential just because it might seem easier, because you won't succeed at it, because your mind is always somewhere else that you want to do commercial. If you want to do commercial, this is advice I gave them, and I always give. Whatever you want to do. Let's say you're starting off, you don't know what the heck you're doing. Find somebody locally that's doing what you want to do, whether it be commercial or residential, that's doing consistent enough deals, and then go work for them, right? Or be an apprentice for them, or be their boots on the ground. That's how I got started. I was broke when I got started. Now I just got started by being somebody's boots on the ground. Go be their boots on the ground, learn the strategy, learn the techniques, maybe make a little bit of money, but you understand the ins and outs and you start building your own credibility. So when you're ready to do this on your own, you know exactly where you're going, what you're doing, and you have the capital to do so. So I recommend strongly, like, whichever one you feel like it's going to, drive you the most, go for that one. Now, don't have the misconception that, well, commercial makes more money, because if you suck, you will not make money at either one. All right. I know people that make millions of dollars on either one. It doesn't matter. They both make money when you're really good at what you do. So make sure you're picking something that you are actually intrigued by and you actually want to do, versus something that you feel forced to do, right? Because you think it's going to be easier, it's going to be more profitable. Don't chase the money. The money's not going to get you there. What's going to get you there is your passion for what you're doing. I had another really good question where this guy asks, I door knock and cold call notice of default properties. So pretty much like anything that's about pre-foreclosure. And I generate 100 grand a year. How do I expand? First of all, there's no looking to expand. You're not making enough money. 100 grand a year. I mean, that's a good, don't get me wrong, that's a good start, but that's all it is a start. You haven't maximized the profit of that list. You haven't learned yet how to maximize profit per deal. You understand? We do 6 figures per month on just the pre-foreclosure list. You understand? We do that with one person. So it's not about expanding or scaling. These are the things that we overcomplicate in business. We think that in order to scale, we need to add more complexity to the business. That's bringing on new hires, adding more marketing, more channels. But you got to understand, have you fully maximized the marketing, the strategy, and the system that you're currently using? And if you haven't fully maximized it yet, adding any other level of complexity to this is going to actually break the current system that you have. So what you want to do instead is you want to learn, how can I maximize my profit per deal? Because that 100 grand doing just one list, you should be at least $500,000 a year. If you're not even hitting $500,000, then you still haven't figured out how to maximize that list. You understand? So anything you throw at it, all it's going to do is break the system. So you first maximize the list, you get everything ironed out, then you look at possibly scaling. How do I find buyers? I mean, I teach this all the time. I have playlists in my YouTube channel. I have everything showing you how I build it. Number one is networking events. There's nothing better. This is why, again, virtual wholesaling, I just don't agree with. Because when you virtual wholesale, what are you hoping for? Investor lift or some nonsense like that? And it's just, now you need dispo people because it's a nuisance and a pain in the ass to run. But locally, you go to networking events, join all of the Facebook groups, real estate investment Facebook groups in that city, and look for everybody that responds to like other wholesalers' posts. These are potential buyers. Not all of them are buyers, but you start messaging. I tell my students to do at least 5 reach outs a day to all potential new buyers. And you start just one-on-one. You figure out what they want, pretty much interview them, meet them for coffee, get to know them, and you start building your buyers list. Your buyers list does not have to be 20 to 50 people. 4 to 5 good solid buyers in your area can run $1 million business. You understand? Like, you don't need that many buyers. You need quality buyers that are serious and are always buying when you have a deal. When you do this, you have a much easier business to run, and it's a much more profitable business to run, and you don't need any dispo people to manage that. So I was asked if there's any tools I like to use to do the market updates. Because I pillar number one that I teach is pulling your own research, doing research to see where your market currently sits at. Now, if you can, I prefer to use the MLS data, because depending on the state that you're in, the MLS is a mob. They control all the data, right? So if you can get access to it, you're going to have the best, most accurate data. So I like using them. If you can't, we can piece together. I like realtor.com. They have a nice little heat map, and it shows you the hot areas and stuff like that. So, I've used them. I've used Redfin also. And pretty much what we're looking for is where's the biggest amount of demand from buyers, right? And just seeing like where's the market heading, and it doesn't have to be like very, let's say, accurate, right? Like, let's say if I pull it from the MLS, it's going to tell me San Antonio's got 3.8 months of inventory, but if I pull it from Redfin, it's telling me it's got 4.2 months. All right, it's not going to move the needle a drastic amount. It's not going to be like the MLS is saying 3.8 and Redfin is saying 6.2, right? It's not like that. It's small variations, but what we look for is patterns. So whatever source you pick, make sure you stick to that source every single month. And if you can do the MLS, do it. If not, it's not a deal killer. All right. You can. I've done it with plenty of my students that don't have a license or MLS access, and they get the data just fine. All right. So it's not a big deal. And if you need help with any of this, that's what the mastermind is for. So here's the next question. Will it be best to ask property managers for quotes like rent rates and house prices? No. You want to get good at doing this yourself. You understand? So you don't want to ask anybody for anything where it forces you to depend on them on what your numbers look like. If you are wholesaling, I don't run numbers. All right. I've done plenty of videos on this. If you're not sure, ask me in the comments. I'll give you the answer. I'll show it to you why I don't run numbers. But if you are the buyer yourself, you should be good at running your own numbers. I don't want anybody's opinions. All right. I want my own. So even agents, after being in this business for 12 years, I realized that you have zero credibility just because you passed the agents class, right? Just because you got your license. There are some really, really good agents that I love working with. I work with agents all the time, but I would say 80% of them are terrible. All right. And they don't know how to run comps. They don't know how to look at properties. They're just terrible. They just know how to test well, apparently. So I wouldn't rely on any of their expertise or opinions. Struggling to narrow down the markets by zip codes. Any good tips on this? I mean, like I said, if you were to even use the Realtor heat map that they have, it doesn't have to necessarily be by zip code. It could just be by areas of town. Some areas, some cities don't have that many zip codes. Like San Antonio has an insane amount of zip codes. There's other markets that have maybe a handful of zip codes, right? So you might need to go by neighborhood. Either way, there's always hot zones and not so hot zones, right? So you get to look at these things based on the overall data. And really, the main key points you want to look for is speed of sale, as far as the price points, which price points are selling the fastest, and then what areas have more of those price points. That those two pieces should help you out. Yasmin, can you share more on the biggest risk in getting your first deal done? I think the biggest risk with getting your first deal done is thinking that that first deal is going to change your life. It's not. It's really not. If you get it right away, then you think that it's too easy, right? And the next one should be just as fast, and it may take you months to get the next one, and then you start second guessing everything you do. If it takes you forever to get, you might question like, is this even worth the chase? And then it's like, if it's too small of a wholesale deal, you're not gonna feel so accomplished. If it's too big of a wholesale deal, you're gonna think that you're a genius. Just people put too much weight on the first deal. To me, it's like, get the first one out the way. Let's go for the second and third. Once you're at your fourth, fifth, Now let's talk about business. Now let's talk about systems and structures. You're not there yet, right? So the biggest risk I think with getting your first deal done is you overthink the hell out of it. You know, you put too much weight on it, you put too much importance on it, and it's just not that serious. You got to move past. It's not the first deal that makes it, it's the next 100. I tell my students this all the time. It's not this next deal, it's the next 100. All right? I'd rather you skip on the next deal and close 100 more than do everything in your power to close this next one because it's the first one and it's the one that's most important, and it's not. And you give it so much importance that you ends up screwing up a lot of your business. In the training, I tell a story about two students of mine that they had the same deal. One couldn't close it because it was barely going to make them 10 grand. I don't let I tell all my students don't chase anything under 20. And then the other one made 62,000 on it. And they asked, what made the other one's buyer better than the one that couldn't close on it? Because the only difference was the buyer. One had a buyer that was willing to pay 60, 50 grand more. And they said, what made this buyer better? It was just a buyer that his criteria was different than everybody else's. Some people buy a piece of real estate like myself, right? So I could have been that buyer that was only going to net that wholesaler 10 grand because I want the margin. I like making money on my flips. On my flips, if I'm not making 70 plus, I don't want to do it. But you have other buyers, like I have buyers that they're happy making 20. There's your margin right there. That's a $50,000 swing right there, right? So what made one buyer better than the other? Nothing really. It's just one doesn't care for that much of a margin. They're happy with just 20 grand, and these are the buyers we look for. One person asked, so not virtual wholesaling, but more like door knocking and cold calling. I'm not saying don't do virtual wholesaling. I'm just saying I don't personally like it. That's it. It's a personal opinion. I know people that do great at virtual wholesaling. Very few. But it's just a personal opinion. That's all that is. Now, as far as door knocking and cold calling, I wouldn't say and. Door knocking is extremely time consuming. We don't do any of it. The only thing we do is cold calling because it's direct to seller. We get them on the phone. We get to test out scripts. We get to get their responses. We get to hear them. So we love cold calling over everything, but definitely not door knocking. Door knocking is, I just don't see the point. Unless you have an in on a property that is not really on any list and you're trying to find the owner or the neighbors, I've done that. But as far as door knocking, like a list or something, it's extremely time consuming and it doesn't play out tremendously well. So somebody asks, how do you know wholesalers aren't just throwing numbers out there? They always lowball the rehab and overshoot the repairs. I mean, I completely agree. This is why as a buyer, I never trust a wholesaler's numbers. When wholesalers send me a deal, all I ask them for is send me the address, link of the pictures, and what you want it for. That's it. That's all I care. And as a wholesaler, that's all I send my buyers. I don't want your opinion of the repairs. I don't care what it is because I have my contractors and I run it my way. You don't have my contractors and you don't run it my way. So there's no way in hell that you're going to tell me what the rehab is. And ARV or any numbers, they're just still your opinion. You can be extremely conservative or extremely aggressive. It may not fit my criteria, right? So I run my own numbers. I have wholesalers all the time. They're like, but John, the ARV on this one's like 370. I'm like, I'm not seeing anything over 340. Oh, but this 3 neighborhoods over, one property in the freaking, all the way at the edge sold for, I don't care. I'm not going to, run the risk of this property off that one comp. You understand? Like I run my comps different. It doesn't make me right. The only thing that makes the person right is whoever buys it, renovates it, and sells it, and whatever they collect, that was the right strategy for them. If it made them money or not, I don't know. That's on them. But I run my numbers a certain way. All buyers run their numbers differently. This is why we don't think for them. Oh, what was the deed of trust criteria I mentioned? So when I do foreclosure marketing, we have a lot of marketing really. We do a deed of trust criteria that I want the deed of trust to be at least 10 years or older. This means that the loan that was made on the property has been made 10 years or older, right? This means that there's a really good chance of this property having a decent amount of equity. This way, I don't have to be chasing properties that have negative or no equity at all. I don't like those. I know there's some strategies that can be done with them, not enough that I care about. So I want 10 years or more. And I also want the original loan amount to be substantially less than whatever the median is at this moment. Because if the loan was taken 10 years ago, and back then it was 400 grand, the original loan amount, in San Antonio, I mean, the house is probably worth now, I don't know, 700, 800, depending on where it is, right? Maybe more. Um, that doesn't help me because the median right now in San Antonio is probably like 280, 290, right? So that property is going to be way too expensive. I don't have buyers for it. So I want properties where the original loan amount was less than whatever the median is. It just helps us understand like there's pretty much a good chance that this property is going to have a ton of equity and it's going to be in a highly desirable area. So those are things that we look for. So those were all the questions that were asked. If you guys want to see what this training was about, I'll put a link below. And I did actually a more in-depth training that I have on my channel, so I'll put that one in there. This one was about 45 minutes. The one that I'm gonna link below is about like an hour and a half. So I go into a lot more details on a lot of these things. So if you liked it, just check it out. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. And any questions you guys have, you can always book a strategy call with me. If it's your first one, it'll be free. And we'll get on there and I will analyze your whole business for you, and I will tell you exactly what I would do if I was in your shoes. All right. So if this is interesting to you, just go to joinpwm.com and pick a time. That's all you got to do. All right, guys. See you on the next one.